All right, welcome back to One-on-One with Mr. U. Of course, I am your host, Mr. U. Before we get started with our show today, if you're watching us and listening for the very first time, upper right-hand corner of the screen is a QR code. That's how you find all of our shows on One-on-One, going all the way back probably about 4 years or so. Awesome conversations from people all around the entire world with compelling stories, actionable tips and strategies, and some real wholesome conversations. So you can find that upper right-hand corner of the screen, that QR code. Grab that with your phone, and you can check it out. In studio with us today, my guest is the leadership coach, the author of Finding Clarity, Your Guide to Peace, Purpose, and Prosperity. And he's also known as the Clarity Guy. David Prosper is in the studio today. How are you, man?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me, brother.
Hey, man, the pleasure's mine, man. We had a fantastic pre-interview conversation, man. So I'm excited about what you're going to be sharing with our listeners and viewers today. So let's try to get into that a little bit. Let's start with where you're from, man. Tell me not only where you're from, but also weave into it. What happened, or was there a factor in that time frame that got you to where you are today? So a little bit about your childhood, your background, but is there a factor or a significant event that got you to where you are today? Go for it, brother.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. I'm a son of two Haitian immigrants, so born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, to my mother and father who came into this country for the American dream. And as I got to see them, come from a third world country to work hard and do dishes and become the school cafeteria people, what I got to see was resiliency, work ethic, and optimism. Like what I loved about how my mom just went about her day was she never let her title define who she was. And in the eyes of culture, it's like she was a cafeteria later. So like she would be considered low on a totem pole, but she always saw herself as somebody bigger than that. And her identity came from God. So I got to see that and witness it growing up. And she was a pastor, so I'm a pastor's child. And what was and what was like a catalyst for me that set me on this path of becoming obsessed about clarity and helping people move from where they're at to where they want to be is seeing my mother on her deathbed and her crying the last couple of days saying, I wish I did enough. I wish I did enough. And I was like, Mom, you raised 3 Black kids in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. None of us are in jail. And she laughed, but she continued to cry and said, I had all these dreams and goals, but I wish I did enough. So what I understood was my mother had this inclination. She had this desire, but she just didn't know her next right step that led to her next right step. And over the last 10 years, and it is actually 10 years this year since I lost my mother. For the last 10 years, I've been obsessed with helping people find clarity to find their next right step. And hopefully I get to save my mother by serving people.
Well, that's a powerful story. That's probably one of the many things that I remember from our conversation was, I wish I did enough. I even wrote it down. I wish I did enough. I wish I did enough. Can you tell me, just from your standpoint, and then we'll kind of pivot a little bit. Again, first, sorry about the loss of your mom. Our condolences to you on this, brother.
Thank you.
Can you say that I know you kind of grabbed the mantle and you kind of taken over where she kind of left off is to a degree with your mindset and what you're trying to do, not to make up for what happened, but just to, kind of further some legacy down the road a little bit. In what significant place do you think you changed the most? Not only because your mom is gone, but also because of how she left and what she kind of left behind. How do you think you changed the most? It is one area you can pinpoint. What's that?
That's a powerful question. As you were saying that, I'm thinking, I was like, what area did I change the most? I
don't know.
And I'm thinking, I was like, I need to get a good answer. The biggest thing for me was spirituality. Like, I was baptized when I was like 11 years old because, again, my mother was a pastor, so I was kind of forced to do it. So I didn't do it because I wanted to. And then right after she passed in July of 2016, I got baptized September of 20. I got rebaptized 2016 September, and in that was like my mother was always a praying woman. So she was like always praying. Like Saturday morning, she closed the door and she's praying. And it used to be annoying because I was like, I want to spend time with her. And she was spending time with God. I'm like, yo, what's up with that? So that seeing that being modeled literally changed how I start my day and how I fellowship with God. And then to the point where I have clients and people that when I go out and speak, they're like, you have all this wisdom. Oh my goodness, where'd you get it from? I was like, you wouldn't believe me if I told you. It was like, where? I was like, the Bible. So for me, it's been like Jesus being my mentor, and in building a relationship with him has helped the relationships that I have with others become better. And then trusting and surrendering to his process and doing what I need to do and letting him do what he needs to do. Like it's created more peace. And that's where, Finding Clarity, the book, came from, and just being in walk with him. So that's the biggest thing that's shifted for me.
I love this. Love this. I got a whole bunch of questions. I prepped you in advance. I asked a lot of deep thinking questions. I think we already seen a little bit of that, but I want to kind of go a little bit further because you talked about coming from two Haitian immigrants. I want to just get your honest feelings, if you don't mind sharing this on air. I know it's live and everybody can hear your answer, but when you hear things in the news or something that has to do with immigrants or laws and borders, instant reaction. How are you feeling in that moment? Have you evolved from whatever that initial thought is? Talk to me about that a little bit.
That's a good one. It's funny because I was just talking to my father a couple of weeks ago, and he just got out of prison, and his accent is just as strong as if he first came into America. And he was like, David, petit moi, which means my son. I'm so glad I have my immigration card. I'm glad I'm a citizen. I was like, yeah, because Trump would have kicked you out, Dad. He would have kicked you out. But we can. I've learned, like, in my culture, like, you either laugh or cry about it. Like, so we'd rather laugh. But when I hear about it in the news, when I think about, again, my family were immigrants. But what I've noticed, what they did, my mother, she went about, like, she did the immigration process. She got her green card, and then she did her schooling and all this stuff, and submitting all of the documents that she had to do in order to become a citizen, and foregoing Haiti as her country of origin. So I saw them as a child vicariously go through the immigration process of and then being met with a lot of the challenges, but staying steadfast. Instead of, what I loved about my parents, and I honor them, instead of complaining about what's not going well, they figured a way to make it actually become beneficial. Because there's a point, like, we can scream, we can shout, we can do a lot of protesting, like, that grabs attention. But what are the solutions outside of that? You have to still go back home. So I got to see them actually do the solutions, and that's what has shaped my perspective.
I love it. I want to get into some more of the work that you're doing, but I do have another question I want to ask you about. I know that people might find this sacrilegious, but I'm if you ever watch any of our shows, you know I keep it as real as humanly possible. I don't believe that we can live out somebody else's dream. I'm saying that maybe it's a clunky way of saying it. Maybe I shouldn't say it that way. I should rephrase it. But I really feel like somebody's dream from 1859, you can't live that dream out in 2026 because circumstances are different era, different people, different mindset, different fears and concerns. I can't live out the dream from my great-great-grandfather. I can't live that out. He was thinking about things that I didn't even know anything about. I wasn't even an embryo when he was thinking about this kind of stuff. For you personally, David, what is the American dream for you? And I can probably guess what it is for your parents, what it was for your parents.
Yeah.
What's the American dream for you? When you hear American dream, what's that look like?
That's a good one. I'm gonna be honest. That's one of the best questions I've ever been asked.
That's nice of you, sir. That's
Being
nice
a
of you.
son of an immigrant. The American dream for me has evolved, and it is now how I would define it is maximizing the resources that you have. And even though you can come from poverty, like I grew up in the projects of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, which is still considered rich from a third world country, like my parents grew up. So that's poor America, but poor America is still rich in other
Oh,
countries.
yes, absolutely.
Um, so for me is maximizing resources, maximizing opportunities, is maximizing connections, is maximizing network, and then using all of those things to leverage ourselves in a way that we can serve more, give more, and love more. And that's the American dream for me.
I love it. I love it. What was the impetus for the book, man? Why did Finding Clarity come about? Please tell me you weren't just like, you know what? He's the author. I want to be an author too. Tell me that's not what happened. Tell me there was a reason and a purpose behind why you wrote that book. Please tell me that.
It's I was walking because I used to live in Colorado Springs, and I was walking up the mountain, and I was like, God, like, what's my thing? Like Tony Robbins has his thing, Les Brown, John Maxwell, all these amazing individuals that I get to look up to and learn from. I'm like, what is David Prosper's thing? But more importantly, what do you want your children to hear? And he said at the mountaintop for me was clarity. And I was like, okay, God, like, what does that mean? And I'm searching the scriptures, and I'm like, okay, but what do you want me to do with it? He was like, I need you to help my people find clarity. And I was like, okay, what's my next step? And he was like, write a book. And I was like, who am I? I had a Moses moment. I was like, who am I to tell these people I'm not those? And so it was like, okay, so since you have a podcast, Clarity with David Prosper, convert your podcast into a book. And so that was my next right step. Continue what I'm doing, being faithful what I'm doing in front of me. And when I'm done in that season, to transcribe that into a book. And as I wrote the book, I was talking to a gentleman yesterday, and he was like, what should I be thinking about as an author? I was like, first step, everyone teach their own, but the first step, integrate God into your writing. Then whatever you write is going to speak to the souls and the hearts of the people. So he became my co-author. And
Okay.
yeah, so that's where it all originated from. And then I was like, okay, God, if this is free, if you really want me to do this, you're gonna help me see this through. And since I've released a book, there's been countless people who've benefited from it and talked about, it feels like you're talking to me. And I was like, oh, that's God talking to you. I'm just the vessel, the vehicle, and the pen. He's actually the ink. So he's talking to you. So have a good conversation with him.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. So as the clarity guy, from what I'm understanding, you help people break the default loop. What is the default loop? Help us understand that.
Oh, yeah, this one is good right here. So the default loop is the projection and perceptions that people have of us. So typically we put things in boxes and we do the same thing, or we follow the same script because we followed the same script. So go to college, get a good job, retire, and then spend time with grandkids in a white picket fence. And oftentimes that default loops gets us into patterns and systems where we don't feel fulfilled, but we don't want to go against the current and go against the groupthink philosophy. So we continue to do the same things, getting the same results, feeling deprived. But you know what? At least I'm not on the outside. So the default loop is us doing things, being things, showing up to places where it's not in alignment, but it's out of convenience and from a need of acceptance. And when people break from the default loop to the clarity cycle and they live in clarity, they're designing a life based off how they're intrinsically designed. And we can only understand that by understanding our creator.
I love it. I love it. So when we talk about living by design, for you personally, what does that mean? And our follow-up to that would be, where does discipline play a part in that?
Ooh, okay. All right. So living by design is understanding my strengths and weaknesses and maximizing my strengths and weaknesses, and then taking it a step further, like understanding what's my purpose. My purpose is, we all have a purpose. So I believe every human's purpose is to serve. And the goal of living by design is, how do I serve best? So for me, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, and I'm a coach. That is how I serve best. Other people, they're administrative, they're a teacher, they're a principal, whatever it may be. That's their level of service. And then my goal is to find opportunities that I can use how I serve best to serve people. So living by design. And then the follow-up, discipline, great question. Discipline allows us to do the thing long enough in order to develop our ability to serve the people.
Oh, I like that. I like that. Do it long enough.
Yeah.
I think that's a big key. That's a nugget right there. To do it long enough that you see it develop, that you develop. I like that. I like that. All right. So you teach what you call clarity archetypes. You got a quiz. I'm dropping that on the screen right now for the listeners and viewers to watch it. The claritybrand.ai. What is this archetype and what is this quiz about?
So yeah, it helps you understand where you're at in the cycle, because clarity is not this finite thing, and it's not this judgment like some other assessments that are out there. So the archetype, it breaks it down. The first one is a wanderer. So you're typically finding your way. You're kind of confused, but you feel that uneasiness. But you know that there's something out there, but you still don't know how to articulate it. Then you move into the seeker. And the seeker is an individual who's going to the networking events, listening to podcasts from Mr. U, and reading different books. And then they're consuming all of this good content because they're looking for the good content. Then they meet a guide and they go into the architect. That's when they start designing their ecosystem, designing their lives, designing their businesses, designing their podcasts, like Mr. U, right? You changed your name because so many people will mess up how they pronounce your name. And you're just like, you know what?
Tired of that mess.
Real quick. So it's like, just call me Mr. U. It's keep it simple. You design that. And then the last step is the flow master. And the flow master is anchored and convicted in who they are. And they're living their values. They're attracting what their vibrations. They're anchored and grounded and saying, you know what? I know who I am. And then now I'm here to serve, because that, I believe, is the greatest sense of fulfillment. How can I make things better? How can I grow things? So that's what the quiz walks you through. Once you take it, you figure out where you're at. And the goal is, what is your next step? So if you're a wanderer, what is your next step to be a seeker? If you're a seeker, what's your next step to be an architect? If you're an architect, what's your next step to be a flow master? And then we go through these cycles and ebbs and flows, whether in a day or in a week, but it's just understanding where you're at.
I love it. I love it. David has a free clarity archetype quiz right here on the screen. For those that are listening and not watching, it's the claritybrand.ai. The Clarity Brand spelled the same way, the claritybrand.ai. Find out if you're a flow master, architect, or if you're just a wanderer. You want to find out which one you are. So check that quiz out. I believe it is free. All right. Yes. So what would you say is the biggest misconception about clarity? Because I hear clarity a lot. As a matter of fact, I've been advised to utilize that in some things that I'm doing professionally. But what's the biggest misconception that you would say about clarity?
Yeah. So yes, you're 100% right. Clarity is a very overused word. And I'm the clarity guy, so I'm gonna keep it straight. It's a very
brand, man. I ain't trying to mess up your brand, but I'm just asking a question over here.
It's all good. The biggest misconception is that you have to figure it all out. So when people think, "Oh, I have clarity," they associate clarity with, "I know the outcome." But clarity isn't that. Ooh. It's knowing your next right step. So I live in Utah. You live South Carolina.
Yeah.
South Carolina. So for me to drive from Utah to South Carolina, I'm not going to be busy with what the Carolina roads are. South Carolina, I don't care about that right now. I need to figure out the roads in Utah, then when I get to Colorado, then when I get to Tennessee, like it's my next right step. So if I put in my GPS, this is your address, I only know 400 to 600 feet at nighttime what's ahead of me, but I know the direction that I'm going. So the biggest misconception is the outcome. Clarity is knowing the direction. And then that way, when I need to take detours, I know ultimately where I'm going. I don't know how the outcome is going to be.
I love that. I do a lot of other things other than podcasting. I do a lot of things in the realm of counseling, deliverance, and things like that. So I recognize that a lot of things that we deal with, our parents and grandparents have dealt with. I just kind of keep that really simple. I go over everybody's head. For yourself, what do you think is what do you know is one limiting belief you had that you had to get rid of, or you have to get rid of now to be the person that you want to be?
Biggest limiting belief is I come from nothing, so I have to be nothing. And I remember growing up and hearing the stories. The people in my church would actually say, "My God," I was like, "Don't forget the people when you make it." You know, the white man. He was just like, and they would say, you know, you gotta stay humble. You gotta stay grounded. Don't get too high and mighty. You remember your roots. This is where you came from. So don't act like you're new to anybody. Don't act like you have dreams and goals. No, this is not what we do here. We play here because this is where we fit in. So the biggest thing is, so I've been in circles where there's people who have a lot of commas in their bank accounts, like 3 commas, and I'm around them. And there's been times where that limiting belief was just like, don't become nothing because I come from nothing. When I was like, I shouldn't be in this room. But I combat that every time where I'm like, all right, God, like I got you. So I am something. And if you've opened this door, then I'm gonna walk through it. And if this is not for me, you'll close it and you'll see me, you'll redirect me. So that's the biggest one.
Love that. If you could highlight right now one area that is, I would say, is where you're least aligned with your values in this area, what is it that you would change? Is there an area of your life that you're doing right now that's the least aligned with the values that you want to uphold? What would that be, and how would you change it?
This is something I coach, but this is something I need to work on myself. Giving an irresponsible yes. So I find myself giving a lot of yeses because
we ain't talking about this show, right? That's not.
No. Somebody has an event. I'm like, yeah, sure. It's like my mother has always told me as a kid, she would always say, make yourself useful. So when I say yes, it's like it has a good intention. Like I want to serve, I want to make things better. But when I say yes, I'm not always considering like the time allotment that I have and what other prior engagements. I'm just saying yes, and then I'm trying to figure it out on the back end. So that's the least aligned, because that makes me I don't show up to things that I need to on time, or I have to backtrack and say, I can't make it. And now that it breaks down dependability. So yeah, that's the biggest thing I need to work on, that I'm still working on.
That's a great answer. I got a follow up to that. I start in the next question. But at the potato, okay, I'm not claiming to be an expert on Google and how Google works and how the algorithm works. I don't know. I know that people have blogs and they have podcasts and they have books and they have web pages and they have social media, all with the design to put out a certain image to tell the people who are looking or who may Google them what they want them to see. But we know that sometimes Google shows things that you don't want to be at the top of the list of things that people find out about you. If somebody Googled you today, David B. Prosper, what do you think they would see or learn about you? And do you like the idea of that?
I welcome it. I welcome it because
Okay.
at the end of the day, one thing I don't have is an imposter syndrome because I
Fair
am who
enough.
I say I am, and my life is public to a point. Like I have private things, but if
Yeah.
somebody Googled me, the things that they will see is a lot of podcasting, a lot of speaking, books, articles. But what they would not notice, but they'll eventually get to, is that I was married, and my marriage was very public. The individual I got married, my former wife, she's a celebrity in a way, and she's been
That's
on.
even I missed that, but
Yeah, yeah,
I don't go deep. I don't deep
it's
dive on
deep.
Google. Though, so.
It's deep. Oh, but yeah, so she's a celebrity, and unfortunately, her claim to fame was she experienced a domestic violence abuse in her first marriage. I was the second marriage,
Sorry to hear that.
and the biggest misconception I tell people, like, if you really Google my name, um, when you read it, it's David B. Prosperous, second husband, not the first husband. The first husband was the one who did the event. The second husband, which is me, um, did not do that. So people will find out that I was married, and I remember telling my girlfriend Googled me, and she ended up seeing it, and I was like, yeah, my marriage
Oh
is.
wow.
And I lived in the public eye for a very long time, so that's why I keep certain things private, because it's not what it's all cracked up to be.
You betcha. I love this. I love this. I got some more questions, but I know we don't have that much time. But if I was your new coach, if I was your new high performance coach, what's the very first priority that we have to address right out of the gate? You may have 10 mountains that you want to climb. Number one mountain, you got to deal with it up front. It's the most important one. What are we dealing with?
Systems.
Systems. Break it
Yeah.
down for me a little bit more.
So creating systems that allow, and I'm the person that's getting coached.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I'm coaching
So
you.
if I'm getting coached, the biggest thing is the systems. And because I have a lot of things where I have a whiteboard here and I have my notebook over here, and so it's just, there's a lot of scatteredness, and then bringing everything through a SOP, standard operating procedure, of how I make decisions, what do I tackle, what's prioritized, and then what's on my not to do. So it's just like creating systems of prioritization, creating systems of implementation of the goals and the strategies and the items I need to execute. So yeah, biggest thing is systems.
Got it. Got it. I got two more questions. I'm going to have you share about how people can find you and maybe perhaps share with some wisdom with our viewers and listeners. But this question, I have to ask this. I asked you when we first met, I got to ask you. I got two friends that live in Utah, and I have to ask this question because it's low hanging fruit. It's sitting right there. What's one of the biggest misconceptions about Utah? Because, that's not a prime place to move for a lot of people.
Yeah.
But you decided to move there from Florida. From sunny Florida, you moved to Utah. If you want to talk about that, you can. But my primary question is, what's the biggest misconception about Utah that people do not know about?
Yeah, that's a good one. Utah is very different. It's like an entire new country.
That's what I hear.
It's like an entire new country. But one of the biggest misconceptions about Utah, and I share this with my white brothers and sisters. Like, I joke around and say, like, Utah is like where all white people are born, and they just spread out into the rest of the world. But here's the thing that I love most, is the level of hospitality that is here.
I heard that too.
The hospital, and then the culture of family and community. It is so ingrained in the culture. It's like people prioritize community, people prioritize family, and like, you're not going to fit into every tribe, just like anywhere else. But when you do find your tribe, like I've been grateful to find my tribe, like it is like it's a family. There you get invited to so many things. And
My
people are
curiosity
actually
is peaked right now.
yeah, you get invited to a lot of things. And the last thing is people in Utah are more cultured than people give them credit, because you got to think about, with the church being here, the LDS church, they send a lot of missionaries to different parts of the world. So a lot of these missionaries come back, haven't been to Africa, haven't been to New Zealand, Detroit, China. So they're actually very cultured when it comes to understanding differences of people, in my opinion, than anywhere else I've ever been.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot of that is shocking. I did say I had one more question, but I forgot a very important question. Talk about real briefly about the 1 billion person mission that you have.
Oh,
I won't forget about
so
that.
yes. So we're going to help 1 billion people live by design. And how we get to do that is through the books that we put out and the readers that we get to connect with through their speaking events. Next year, my ambitious and audacious goal is to have a Clarity Summit where we're going to have different speakers on the stage and talking about different methods to finding their clarity of their next right step. And then later this year, my ambitious goal is to have clarity retreats. So it's like having our retreats, having our summits, and then having our literature, and then eventually the app that's coming out of helping people make better decisions. Thank you. So it's how can we help people make better decisions so they know their next right step and they eliminate the noise and they can focus on what's ahead of them. So that's our mission. And when we can do that successfully, people become more fulfilled, they become happier, they become more peaceful, their relationships get better, our schools get better, and overall the world gets better when we live by design, because we're no longer competing, we're collaborating.
I love it, man. So this is my final question for real. And I'm going to have you take the last 120 seconds of the show to kind of just share whatever's on your heart and let folks know where they can find your work and where they can find you if they have any questions. All right, last question. If somebody listening right now kind of feels kind of lost right now, they kind of feel like they're dealing with not really being connected, can you give them one simple step to help them find clarity?
This is going to be profound. You're going to be like, oh my goodness, this is a clarity guy giving me this simple direction. Your mom and your dad has probably told you this numerous times. Clean your room, clean your house. I promise you, if you do those two things, you clean your physical space, it's going to give you the emotional space to deal with what you have to deal with. And oftentimes when we're overwhelmed, we feel disconnected, is because we're overwhelmed by the things around us. So there might be some things you need to throw away. So physically do those things and watch how that opens up space mentally, emotionally, and even spiritually to hold space for the next thing.
All right. 120 seconds, brother. You got it, man.
All right.
Use it as you will. You can let folks know where to find you, or you can share something. However you want to do it, brother. Floor is yours.
Appreciate it. So I'm on all social media platforms. The place that I live is Instagram, the Clarity Guy _. So the Clarity Guy _, or you type in my name, David Prosper, you'll see me as well. But the thing I want to leave you with, because like there's going to be a lot of information that you're going to consume and hear, and everyone has an idea about doing something. My challenge and my encouragement is every day make progress, every day find clarity. And I promise you, as you take those next steps, it's going to lead you to your next step. And just keep on going, because time with consistency and discipline leads to elevation. And if you want to elevate your life, put the time in, be consistent with it, and just take your next right step.
Love it. All right, so your podcast is up on the screen, Clarity with David Prosper. The link is up there for those you guys that are watching. You can see, if you're listening, you can't see it obviously, but you can go to Apple Podcasts, Spotify. His podcast is definitely there, and you already have the Clarity Archetype Quiz. That's going to be in the show notes if you want to grab it from there. But this is the author of Finding Clarity, the leadership coach, and the Clarity Architect, the Clarity Guy. David Prosper is in the house. If you guys are watching and listening for the first time, of course, upper right-hand corner of your screen is a QR code where you can get all of our old shows. But please, thank you for supporting us. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/TheyCallMeMrU. All of our shows are there. This episode will be there as well. And of course, on all the listening platforms today. Thanks again for watching and for listening. Have a fantastic day. I'm Mr. U. That's David B. Prosper. We're out of here. Have a good one.